Hello, my name's Paul and I look after the mindfulness program here at Hope.
And my name is Andrea, and I'm going to ask Paul a few questions today.
Far away.
Awesome. So we're talking about anxiety today. And I was wondering, is it a really big issue for clients who come here?
Absolutely. And you find like sort of most clients, either anxiety is something that may have been there even before they started using drugs, or anxiety sort of arose as a result of their addictive behaviour. And I would say it's very rare that we get clients here that don't have some sort of issues around anxiety. So yeah, it's a big one.
So they do really need help around that topic. And as the manager of the mindfulness program, how can mindfulness help with anxiety?
It can help a great deal. One of the good things about the mindfulness stuff is it actually kind of involves doing things that we do anyway often, especially the first steps, the earlier tools. And all we're kind of really doing is doing those things more effectively and more deliberately. So what I mean by that is, so one example is when I was, a young guy, I got really bad with anxiety and was kind of induced by alcoholism. And it got so bad I basically ended up on the streets in a very bad way. And during that time, what I used to do was I used to just walk. I used to walk all day. And I didn't realise at the time, but what I was actually doing was grounding myself, which is the first thing we we teach here. Later on, I trained to be a nurse, and as part of my nursing training, I had to spend time on a psychiatric ward as not as a patient, but as a kind of nurse. And what I saw there was very familiar to me. It was people, pacing, people rocking, and I knew exactly what we're doing. They were trying to get grounded, just in the same way that I was trying to get grounded.
So is walking the only thing that can help you ground yourself?
No, lots of ways. So when I say grounding ourselves to deal with anxiety, what I'm referring to is removing our attention to one of the five senses, and it can be any of the five senses. What I found, for a lot of people, the kind of the best thing to deal with can be touch or movement. That's right. So walking is movement, but it could also be, some people do breathing. That's sensation as well. That's touch as well. If people have got a lot of anxiety, touch may be too much for them. So in some cases, sight can be better, and we can actually. And what I mean by that is we're giving our attention to the environment more. Watching, looking for novelty, and this can be a very, very powerful one. I mean, as well as the grounding ourselves, the next thing we start to do is we start to develop what's called kindness practices. Now, the reason they're important is because what we find, those of us who suffer from anxiety, and as I say, I did for a long time, we often have this underlying sense of unease. And so we have these practices that actually start to undo that, so we don't feel uneasy all the time. We feel more comfortable in our own skin.
That sounds great. Do you have a few hands-on examples how your exercises or mindfulness exercises help clients?
Absolutely, yeah. So one example I can think of, we had a client here before who, she used to get panic attacks. I was there with her one day when she was actually going into one of these panic attacks. And what we did is, in her case, we just used, as I say, sight. So we got her to focus on the environment. And my instruction to her was, okay, just notice 10 things you've never noticed before. And she was kind of, giving her it was hard in the beginning, but she started to calm down. And where before she would have just gone into that panic attack, she managed to ground herself. And
did she learn to do that by herself, or did she always need the guidance?
Yeah, because the guidance isn't actually that complicated. It's just really, getting in the habit of doing it. And that's why, meditation can be so important, because meditation can be a way that we practice these tools. And, when we get used to practicing the tools, it sort of becomes natural to just, implement them. Most people, I think, get the idea of grounding themselves, makes intuitive sense. And the idea of kind of developing this sense of goodwill, it makes kind of sense to them. But just the fact that something makes sense to us doesn't necessarily you know, do anything. You have to kind of practice and kind of get comfortable doing these things, and you know, and we do, you know, and it doesn't have to take that long for that to necessarily happen.
So how often do clients who discover mindfulness to help their anxiety usually have to practice until they see results?
Okay, well it varies. So, and I tell you what I mean by that. The actual tools can be used from day one. So grounding yourself, you know, that can be used from day one. In regards to kind of developing this, you know, the kind of the more developing this inner sense of kind of okayness, this goodwill, that tends to take a bit longer. And so generally for people like leaving here, I would suggest a daily meditation practice of at least 20 minutes a day to just practice the loving kindness practice, let's say.
So basically you can have first minor results from day one?
And they can be huge, they can make all the difference. I kind of differentiate it this way. So say stuff like grounding yourself, that's like pulling the weeds, yeah? Mm-hmm. But you know, and you have to keep on pulling the weeds. If you forget to pull the weeds, they'll grow back. But as long as you're pulling the weeds, that's fine. The more long-term thing, let's say the loving kindness, that's getting to the roots of the weeds. But it's not, I mean, in both cases you end up with a kind of weed-free garden, like doing the tools. But it's just for more long-term, you kind of want to get to the root of things.
Awesome. That was very insightful. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you. And you know, just to sort of say to people that there really is, you know, there is a way to deal with anxiety, you know, and, you know, it's one of the key things we focus on here because it's such a big part for those dealing with addiction problems. And if they don't get that sorted, you know, a lot of people have been using alcohol and drugs as their coping strategy. And if you don't have a better coping strategy for anxiety, you just go back to what you know. So thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.